Welcome back to Two Converts. I'm Rusty, and my good friend over there is.
Jason.
Now, both Jason and I are converts to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You could call me the Gentile that joined the church, and Jason was the Jew. He grew up devout Jewish, and I grew up atheist and was baptized Protestant when I was a baby, but we both joined the church and have never looked back. We love learning, living, and sharing the gospel, which is why we do this channel. So if you're looking for undermining or skeptical content about the church, you're going to have to go elsewhere. We are all in. Now, our goal is twofold. We want to help those of you who are investigating the church to know that you're in the right place and hear about people's stories and insights that had to come from the outside in. We weren't born in the church, so we had to go through a lot of the same thought processes and kind of struggles that you may be going through. And our second goal is to help those of you that are already members of the church, meaning already converts, to further ignite your testimony and deepen your conversion to the restored gospel, or reignite or further ignite your testimony. So here's how you can help us. Subscribe. The more subscribers, the more our channel gets attention, the more we can get this news out. We had a goal of hitting 2,500 recently. We're up past 2,640, I think. So that's great. Thank you for all the new subscribers. Also, we want to hear from you, your insights, your profound things that you figured out might be just the piece that somebody needs on their journey. So please put it in the comments below. Anything that we're discussing today, any insights, pop them down there in the comments. We love reading them and interacting with them, and other people are reading them as well. All right. Today was a big day. We recapped the semi-annual general conference. If you're investigating the church, you might have taken a peek at that, but it's where our prophet, our apostles, and other leadership of the church speak to us, and really interesting, Jason. I figure we just take a couple minutes. Anything jump out at you from this conference?
Oh boy. Well, I really liked Elder Uchtdorf and Elder Gong's talks a lot. Just really resonated. This theme of actually the Kirtland Temple was standing out to me. Apparently, President Nelson, inside of church headquarters and the general authorities, invited everybody to study Doctrine and Covenants 109,
109. Uh-huh.
which
The
is the
dedicatory prayer. Hmm.
yeah, Joseph Smith's dedicatory prayer of the Kirtland Temple. And um yeah, so that Elder Gong especially, he had a picture of himself at the Kirtland Temple, the visit of Jesus Christ himself to Joseph Smith and Oliver Cowdery, but also Moses, Elias, and Elijah. And Elder Gong actually said, okay, we have Elias who's restoring the gospel of Abraham, but he interprets that as actually restoring the covenant of Abraham. And that stuck out to me a lot because that's something I think about all the time. But to place it at the Kirtland Temple is when the remainder of the keys that we need to restore everything for the fullness of times is like kind of captured there. And both Passover and Easter time, April 6th, right? 1836 is so there's a kind of an anniversary, so to speak. And that impressed me the most so far.
Very cool. Well, yeah, recurring themes, covenants and second coming came up a lot, which is why I felt it would be fitting to leave this image up again for the second
Yeah.
week in a row. Yeah, President Nelson said that something very interesting. I thought the way that he presented about the second coming, he said, I don't know exactly when it's going to be happen, but I have been prompted to encourage the membership to prepare for the second coming. That was interesting. And
Wow.
that's been a recurring thing. I also thought one quick question that was posed to members, but Tamara Runya made the comment that she said we should ask ourselves what the Savior would say about us to the Father. Woo, that's a loaded one to think about. All right. Unless you have anything else you need to cover, Jason, let's go ahead and hop right into the Come Follow Me lesson. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
All right. For those of you that are new to the channel, we have been going through the Come Follow Me curriculum. So we read through the assigned reading for that week, formulate questions. What we love to do, it's kind of a Jewish study style format, actually. We ask a question and try to dig out insights out of that. So we go back and forth, and we want to hear your insights again in the comments. So let's start in section 30, the Doctrine and
Okay.
Covenants, with verse 2. Now, here's the question to consider. And this one has come up a lot, and we're coming right out of the gate with fire.
Yeah.
Does the church stand between us and the Lord? That's a lot of people. A lot of people are coming back, but many people who have left the church claim that, oh, well, I feel like my relationship with the Lord is now stronger that I left the church, like the church was standing in their way. This is the mentality that many people have. So let's
Okay.
read verse 2, Jason, and then let's tackle that question. Can you read that, please?
Yeah, but your mind has been on the things of the earth more than on the things of me, your Maker, and the ministry whereunto you have been called. And you have not given heed unto my spirit and to those who were set over you, but have been persuaded by those whom I have not commanded.
So I think this idea is just general human pride to have this idea. What do you mean people set over me? What do you mean by that, right? It's our pride kicks in, and there's this thing of, well, I don't think that they're really worthy to be bishops, so I'm going to draw closer to the Lord by not being to the church, right? This kind of mentality. Does the church stand between us and the Lord, Jason?
Not at all. I mean, the church knows that it all it exists to do is to bring individuals and families closer to God. That's all it exists to do. Um, and I mean, it's just selfishness and self-centeredness. It's actually extreme individualism, right? And like, because what about your family, dude or gal? Like what are you gonna, you're all by yourself. You're gonna be so awesome that you're gonna bring your entire family closer to God without all the things that the
The
church does
authority
to
or
support.
covenants?
Yeah, all the things the church does to support your family, the activities, the lessons, the teachings, the righteous examples of other men and women beyond just you alone, to have a righteous community of other families that are working their way, yes, struggling and repenting, but everybody's trying to help each other grow closer to God. And what about the temple? You want an eternal family? I mean, that is the only place to bind a husband and a wife and their children in an eternal family. So um, it's just this one of the other sins of just individualism and people not caring about their community, not caring about their love God. Yeah, yeah. What's the second commandment? Love your neighbor. I mean, your neighbor are those in your ward,
Hmm.
literally. It could be non-members too, but I think uh, your neighbors are the people in your ward. You're supposed to love them and serve them and be in a community with them. So you're saying I can only follow one of the first of the two great commandments. Okay, that's Jesus was very clear and simple. Love God, and the second is like unto it. Love your neighbor as yourself. So I don't see how you can do this without community. And as far as I can see, there's a lot of great religious communities out there with great people, but Latter-day Saints, everybody, even if you're not a member, you can go and look at the Latter-day Saints. These are a people devoted to service that give of their time, their talents, everything that the Lord has given them. They give to serve each other, to serve member and non-member alike. I mean, we're not perfect, but we give. And um, it should be an honor or a pleasure to be part of this community.
Absolutely. And Jason, I'm glad you hit that because that was one of my thoughts. That was almost exactly what I had written, and what I thought was this is a selfish mindset, but I'll even take a step further and say a very childish mindset. It's like people think, oh, well, I got a couple satisfactory answers to some of the big, cosmic questions in my life, and that's good enough for me. Now, church, get out of the way. It's a very childish and selfish mindset. And, it's interesting too, because I try to think about this from the perspective of different denominations of Christianity. And I think a lot of evangelicals, Protestants, and stuff. Think about the church that Christ set up. Almost as like the only purpose was to create the Bible for them, and then however they wanted to interpret the Bible later, that was going to be sufficient. Right? I don't need a church; I have the Bible. Right? A lot of that mindset, and it's like, no, no, the Bible wasn't formulated until hundreds of years later. It was the church that Jesus set up. He didn't set up the Bible and hand it to his disciples and say, this is it. He built the church with the apostles and prophets, and they recorded those words, right? So it's in this
Huh.
structure is obviously important because the
Yeah.
Savior set it up, right? And it's so important that when Judas betrayed the Lord, that they backfilled his position with Matthias. So pretty important there.
Yeah.
Think that we hit those things and just this idea that the church is not the obstacle, but it's the overpass over the obstacles of the world to return us to Heavenly Father. It's the vehicle
Yeah.
to get us there.
Yeah.
Verse 11. How can we live without fearing man? Again, we're in section 30 of the Doctrine and Covenants. Here's verse 11. And your whole labor shall be in Zion, with all your soul from henceforth. Yea, you shall ever open your mouth in my cause, not fearing what man can do, for I am with you. Amen. Jason, how can we live without fearing man? So, my quick thought on this as I was
Yeah.
reflecting on many examples that we have from scripture, Abinadi, I think, is great. Like he knowingly was marching to his doom. And not only that, but he knew when he was standing there, all right, I'm going to deliver the message anyway, and it doesn't matter what happens to me. Where does that where does that courage come from? And the way that I feel about it is when we truly fear the Lord and we have developed that depth of testimony and conversion, it's like an inverse relationship. The more and more you fear the Lord, the less and less you fear man. And so when you really reach that level of being completely converted, that doesn't really matter. You know, you have eternal perspective. You know, hey, this may be it for my mortal sojourn here, but that's all right. I know that I'm doing what the Lord wanted me to do, and everything's going to work out. What are your thoughts? How can we live without fearing man?
Yeah. I have to say I'm so impressed by the answer being in the first part. And your whole labor shall be in Zion. That really stuck out to me very sorely, even to the point of repentance. And your whole labor, right? Um, because I mean, we all, you're a business owner. I'm a military officer. Neither we're not speaking for our organizations, but we put we put a lot of labor into different things. So that kind of hit me like your whole labor shall be in Zion. I'm like, how can I square that? Um, I have to provide for my family. I can't just jump off the wagon and
Well,
and go
Jason,
and
you're going to get to this, but for context for the viewers, just
yeah,
so you know, this section was delivered to David Whitmer and others who are
yeah,
called on full-time missions. You know that. I
yeah.
know you're probably setting that up, but I'm just giving context for the viewers.
No, no, thank
Go
you.
ahead.
That's exactly, yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's revelation given through Joseph Smith the prophet to David Whitmer, Peter Whitmer, and John Whitmer, following the 3-day conference at Fayette, but before the elders of the church had separated. So yeah, so they're going to go on a mission, and that for me, that's the last time I really gave my whole labor in Zion was 2 years of my mission, which I've been talking to my son about and my eldest son. Um, but you know, but I also feel like, okay, what am I doing for Zion today?
Hmm.
um, not ask not what Zion can do for you, but what you can do for Zion.
There you go.
You know what I mean? The kind of
Yes.
the service that we put in, and um, yeah, I mean, sometimes we're gonna fear what this social and financial structures of the world are going to do to us if we pour. It says your soul. It does not, I mean, so I think even we got these. I mean, you and I are full out converts, right? If we could provide for our family and our families pay our mortgage, feed our kids. We would just go on full-time missions. But you can't, you can't, the 21st century, you can't just go on full-time mission after full-time mission and take care of your family and your little kids. Um, but so it's actually a question. I don't think I have an answer. I would throw it back as,
Yeah, the more the more I thought it's funny, yeah, we can't really go out and buy 40 acres of premium farmable land for 20 bucks anymore, you know? So, all right. Yeah, the more I thought about it, Jason, I do think I love coming up with, some sort of graphs or metaphors or frameworks to present these gospel concepts in and make them a little easier to digest.
yeah.
I do think that there is a relationship there between fearing God and fearing man, and they're inverse. So if you were to graph it, right, you get an X. So the more that you fear God, the less that you fear man, and the more that you fear man, the less that you fear God, right? And it's that moving towards fearing God is what's making you move away from fearing man more and more. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I think by fear, it means like pay attention to, right? It's
Well,
like,
yeah, we've
yeah,
done that one before. We've talked about fear a lot. Yeah, there's different ways to interpret that for sure, but scriptural context, however you look at it, when you're concerned more is a let's talk about the other side of that. The more you're
yeah,
concerned with pleasing God versus
yeah,
pleasing man. How about that?
sure. Yeah.
Right? It runs both ways.
I think that's a simple way to understand it. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Let's move into section 31. Another revelation given through Joseph Smith the prophet to Thomas B. Marsh. And this was, he had been baptized. Now, this is, I think, really interesting. So, if there's any of you viewers who are investigating the church or new members, I think a lot of us could benefit, and even full-time members, or I should say, lifetime members of the church. But let's look at this one, verse 2 in section
Okay.
31. And Jason, what do you do if you're the only member in your family? Can you read verse 2,
Mm,
please?
yeah. Apropos. Behold, you have had many afflictions because of your family. So, of course, this is to Thomas Marsh, who was actually in the first presidency.
Hmm.
Um, Nevertheless, I will bless you and your family, yea, your little ones. And the day cometh that they will believe and know the truth and be one with you in my church. Wow.
Yeah.
It's an
What a
amazing
promise.
promise.
Yeah, what do you do if you're the only member of your family? And there may be many of you that grew up like that, or that's your current situation. Jason, how did you tackle it? Because I think, both of us had very different. I'll crack this one first, and then you can add to that, okay? We'll
Yeah.
try to run through this one quick. It is interesting, though, that Thomas B. Marsh, his wife Elizabeth, did later join the church with their children. So that did come to pass. This promise that hey, your family will join you. But that promise isn't necessarily to everyone. Sometimes you're going to have to go it alone. For me, when I joined the church, I went solo, but for me, I didn't care because I knew the church was true. I didn't live with my dad. I just lived with my mom and didn't really have tight family relationships. So that wasn't a big factor for me. I was going to join the church even if I ended up homeless out of the streets, kicked out. I didn't care. I was going to join the church. So I
Hmm.
know that that's a very different set of circumstances from a lot of you guys that may have joined the church or who are investigating, who maybe do have a tight family and are really worried about losing those connections. So might not be a great example there because I knew it was true. I didn't care about anything else. I was moving forward with it. Jason, how did you handle that when you were the only member coming in?
Yeah. I mean, the thing about the restoration is the deeper you go into it, the deeper it points you to your family.
Hmm.
And so, and in fact, the restoration commands you to seek out your ancestors and to be sealed to them. And so, for me, you know, this is not, people want to obviously paint the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as a cult that will just take you away from your family and you don't care and, screw my family. But that's actually, the deeper you go into it, it's like, no, you need to rescue and bind yourself to your ancestors, your parents, those who came before you, and you need to teach your children when you lie by your way and when you raise up in the morning and you know so
That comes straight from Shema, though, right? Aren't you you quoting that for our
yeah,
viewers?
yeah, the via hafta. Yep.
Yep.
When you should lie down, when you rise up and walk by their way. You're teaching your children constantly because you have to pass the covenant to your children. You also have to pass the covenant to your ancestors. And so then once you get deeper into this, you're just this middle link that's trying to be a bridge between your ancestors and your posterity. Um, so you can't really just like abandon your family and just like, oh, I don't care, because this entire restoration is about saving your family and being an eternal family, not just a husband and wife and their children, but all generations going back and all generations into the future. And so that's what this whole thing is about. The church literally exists just to seal, make eternal families.
Well said, Jason. Let's move into verse 7 through 8. Here's the question. Are we willing to be gathered? This is an interesting one because I think that we really need to consider this as members when we're talking about the second coming. And again, if you guys are investigators, it's a good time to join the church. It's a good time. So, verse 7 through 8 here in section 31 of the Doctrine and Covenants. Yea, I will open the hearts of the people, and they will receive you, and I will establish a church by your hand. Obviously, remember, we're talking to Thomas B. Marsh, missionary efforts. But listen, verse 8. And you shall strengthen them and prepare them against the time when they shall be gathered. Now,
Hmm.
throughout all of recorded history with the Lord, right? You go look Old Testament, New Testament, Book of Mormon, all of that. There's a
Yeah.
pattern of the Lord gathering his people either to escape danger or to, establish his covenant, right? This is happening over and over and over. And the last days is not an exception. So at the time, the saints were gathering, to Ohio and then to Nauvoo, Illinois, and then to Salt Lake. But that does not mean our time of gathering is over. We're still looking forward to this period of New Jerusalem. But something I
Hmm.
will throw out there, we know that there are some heavy tribulations and destructions tied to the commencement of this second coming stage. And do not be surprised if you are invited to gather out of your current area or your residence to escape maybe some of these tribulations. And I had a neighbor once who I loved and respected who asked me this. He said, Rusty, what would you do if you were at church and there was some sort of announcement from the first presidency and you were invited to take, your personal effects, your food storage, all this stuff, and to go gather somewhere because of the concern of the impending tribulations or whatever for the second coming? And I thought about that and I had to come to the realization, yeah, if it truly came from the prophet, right, and it was an official kind of thing, yes, I would heed that call. So the question is, would you be willing to be gathered? Are you in a place where you may say, "Oh, well, I got my bowling league and my buddies and I do this and pickleball's coming up on Saturday and we got all this stuff." Would you be willing to drop everything in your life and go gather if the Lord invited you to? Jason, what's your thought?
Well, it's the willingness. I think we have to look to the pioneers. And that's always something I look out for as well in general conference. There was a couple talks. I think Elder Cook had some really interesting things to say about the pioneers and their sacrifices and um, to follow. It's not. I'm not sure it's so much about a particular place at this point. It there's obviously the Jackson County ideas, and for me, I'm very, very attached to the old Jerusalem and the land of Israel. But I think it's the idea of following a prophet,
Hmm.
right? And so you go back. That's the pioneers is that's what the faith that they had. Um, Brigham Young said, we're going west. Pack up all your things in a handcart and we're going to go west. And people just did it and they had the faith that I mean, obviously scoffers said, "Oh, this Brigham Young guy is crazy. They're all going to die. They're going. The federal government is not supporting them. They're just going on their own, and that this is going to be a tragedy." But Brigham Young was a prophet of God, and they made it, and they built a civilization, and as we've talked about, colonized the West and built strong communities that have been very prosperous and righteous, and built families and people. So to me, that's proof that Brigham Young was a prophet. But the faith to go where the prophet wants you to go, and do what the prophet wants you to do. It might not be like, oh, let's go to, it's more could be like, hey, want you to go serve a mission, and just drop everything and go serve a mission. I mean, that's, do we have the faith to respond?
Yeah, agreed.
That's what I'm praying for. Maybe I need more.
Agreed. But I will say, don't rule out the possibility that you might be invited to physically relocate as well from a gathering standpoint as far as that goes. All right, let's move into, oh, you know what? This was actually really good. We're in 30. We just wrapped that up. Okay. I would invite you, because of our shortness of time here, I would invite you guys to read verse 12 and 13 here, section 31, 2, and consider the question, how is it possible to always pray?
Hmm.
And let's just call this, let's maybe truncate the response to that to living a prayerful lifestyle. How about that? To be willing or able to always pray. Let's move into section 32. This is another one that is particularly relevant to new converts, particularly zealous new converts. In section 32 of the Doctrine and Covenants, I'm going to read verse 1 and 4. And then, Jason, I'd love to get your take on why can humility be difficult? And I'll add, why can humility and patience be difficult for new converts? All right, verse 1. And again, this is a revelation given to Parley P. Pratt, who had an amazing conversion story and came in very fiery and zealous for the restoration of the gospel. Verse 1, and now concerning my servant Parley P. Pratt, behold, I say unto him that as I live, I will that he shall declare my gospel and learn of me and be meek and lowly of heart. Then verse 4, and they shall give heed to that which is written and pretend, this is these new convert missionaries, and pretend to no other revelation, and they shall pray always that I may unfold the same to their understandings. Jason, why can humility and patience be difficult for new converts?
The fire, right? The fire can just burn and just burn everything down. And so, how do you control the direction of fire without the Lord? I mean, only the Lord is the master of the fire, and the master of the elements, which in this case I mean the spiritual elements. That's really it. That's
Oh, I thought you were teeing up a metaphor here, Jason. I do like this
oh,
though, right? This directing it. As soon as you said that, I started thinking of a propulsion engine, right? Because when you have an explosion, you can think about a gun, an explosion, a
yep,
cannon, any of that. You have this chemical process that's releasing energy, but you need to put parameters and confine it in order to direct it. And
ah,
maybe if you're that fire, you don't like that. You want to be able to explode everywhere, but you do need to direct it, and that's actually makes it productive instead of just blowing everything up, right?
yeah,
uh,
to move forward.
yeah,
Huh,
that's a
that's
good thought.
good.
All right, so I would agree with you. I think that this converts zeal and fire, but when it's coupled with competence in particular, like if you actually have somebody that's
Yeah,
capable, well spoken,
okay.
really driven, anxious, that can be kind of tough, because when you have high energy, excitement, and intensity, it can kind of annoy us if we don't feel like maybe we're matched well with our companions, or maybe other people don't share that same zeal. It can kind of be a little bit annoying. Um, and many things have already, well, this is interesting. There's an order to things. And I think, particularly when it said here, pretend to know other revelation. There's a lot to learn, guys. If you're investigating the church, even members, there is so much to learn. And especially if we have that zeal and that anxiousness to go declare things, we may be saying things that aren't necessarily aligned, or we may be claiming to get revelation that doesn't align with past inspiration. Just a couple thoughts on this that I
Hmm.
really enjoy. These are both from Joseph Smith. So listen to this. This is relevant to this as well as other topics. Joseph Smith said, "We cannot expect to receive further revelations from God on subjects upon which he has already spoken plainly."
Mm.
So this idea that, oh, I'm
Yeah.
gonna, I'm gonna
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
get my own revelation, my own inspiration, but it's like, no, he's already given the revelation on that. Our responsibility, just like it said here in verse 4, about giving heed to that which is written already,
Yeah.
right? And they shall
Yeah.
pray
Yeah.
always that I may unfold the same, meaning those things that are already written to their understanding. So, this idea that, hey, we need to
Hmm.
go consume as much as already has been revealed.
That's good.
And then another one, I love this idea of this zeal. Love this. Joseph Smith said, "There's been great difficulty in getting anything into the heads of this generation." It has been like splitting hemlock knots. Hemlock's a tree, and the knots, really hard wood, trying to split that wood with a corn dodger. Now, a corn dodger is basically like a cornmeal muffin. And so it's like trying to use that as a wedge to split a really hard tree knot. That's just ridiculous, right? And a pumpkin for a beetle. Now, if any of you guys have seen big timber framing homes or something, the huge mallets that they use to knock these pieces of timber framing together, that's called a beetle. And so he's saying using a pumpkin for that, which will be completely ineffective. So he's saying like it's so hard to get truth and to get anything into the heads of that generation that it's almost impossible. And he said, even the saints are slow to understand. I have tried to teach them the principles of the gospel, and when I have given them one principle, they want another immediately without waiting to practice the first. And I think, at least for
Ah.
me, that anxiousness, that zeal, yeah, 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 let's keep going, more, more, more. But it's like, whoa, slow down. You got to really understand these principles, right? You don't understand them to the degree and depth that you think you do, where you can just immediately race to the next thing. So there's an order to things, right? And we have to learn to be patient and channel that zeal and that excitement for the gospel. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it goes into one of our themes of two converts, right? To immerse yourself in the
Hmm.
scriptures.
Hmm.
And people are desperate to just, I want God to tell me something.
He already
You know,
did.
it's like you've got a whole
Yeah.
standard works. You've
Yeah.
got you've got 100 and where are we at? 195 years of living modern prophets. Like God has given you a lot. Do your work first, do and then ask him if it be true, right? There's you got do God is not going to just throw you a fish. He's trying to help you become an exalted being, which means you gotta learn how to fish,
Yeah.
right? Otherwise, how are you going to become an exalted being if you're just like that? Yep.
Jason, I realize this, and we've talked about this before on the channel, but
Yeah.
the more and more I consumed and learned about the church through church history, through, diving deep in the scriptures and all that, basically all of that time when you're really, really trying to unpack and understand it and you're tutored by the Spirit and
Yeah.
mentored by the prophets, these insights, these teachings, these truths are like arrows in your quiver that you just keep loading up your quiver at the more and more you study. And the reality is, in my opinion, that when the time comes that I need that bit of truth to answer a question or to see through a problem, I already have it because I was
Yeah.
putting in the work early on to do that. So this idea of, well, aren't you going to go get revelation for this or go pray about this? In some instances, I can be like, I already did. I already had the revelation because I spent the time there. I already know what to do here
Yeah.
because you spent
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
time and got the revelation.
In the military, we'd say it's a standard operating procedure.
Yeah, SOPs,
It,
right?
it's already established.
Hmm.
It's already proven. And when you find yourself in the situation, You go to the standard operating procedure and you just do that.
Yeah.
You don't have to go and ask your boss because it's already written. He
Yeah.
says,
Well, and you use the
give heed to
term,
that which is written.
yeah. And you use the term TTPs,
Yep.
tactics, techniques, protocols.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
It's already written. So
So,
you know you already you don't need to waste everybody's time. You already have what you should do.
and I'll say this, I think there's a lot less agitation if you preemptively get the revelation.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when people are desperately seeking revelation and insight, and I'm not saying this for all instances, right? But if you've already done it when you're in a peaceful state, when you're drinking deeply from the word and you get those revelations, that's a lot better than finding yourself lost in the wilderness and feeling like, the world's crushing you and then you're seeking for revelation. It's a lot more comfortable to get it in advance.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
we got to
Good.
advance here quickly.
Yep.
Let's see. What are we commanding the world? How do you prepare for the second coming? Oh, there's so much good stuff in there.
All
Let's jump to this one. Section 35,
right.
verse 20 through 21. How do the scriptures contribute to our salvation? Can you
Hmm.
read verse 20 and 21, Jason?
Yeah. And a commandment I give unto thee, that thou shalt write for him, and the scriptures shall be given, even as they are in mine own bosom, to the salvation of mine own elect. For they will hear my voice, and shall see me, and shall not be asleep, and shall abide the day of my coming, for they shall be purified even as I am pure.
So great promises set up there in verse 21, but they're predicated on verse 20. And that is, the scriptures shall be given, even as they are in mine own bosom, to the salvation of mine own elect. For they that hear my voice, those that study these things and seek out revelation and hear the voice of the Lord, they're going to be awake. They're going to see what's going on. And ideally, they're not deceived, like Matthew 24 talks about many of the elect happening to them. And they'll abide the day of his coming, for they shall be purified. Staying immersed in the scriptures is critical to our path to salvation and living on the covenant path. And they lay out the pattern for us. We see over and over and over people who are doing what the Lord requires, who are seeking to learn the commandments and then live them, are spared from calamities. And that's a big pattern throughout the scriptures. So ideally, we can be wise and follow that same path. Any ideas on that, Jason? How do scriptures contribute to our salvation?
Yeah, I mean, nothing to add. It just goes by these are the written instructions, you know. Um, try them out, live them, and go to them. Learn how to search the scriptures, right? That's I think that if there's any weakness we have in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, people don't know how to search the scriptures, primarily because they are ancient ideas, and Satan is pushing so hard against us just to like we can't understand ancient stuff. We don't want to care. Everything is about progress and the future and AI. And why should I go back to these ancient revelations?
It's really
Um,
hard to be comfortable in the depths when we're distracted by so many shallow things, right?
yeah, yeah, that's so. If anything, that's what you and I are trying to do here is like just we had to figure it out. We weren't raised and trained by our parents or our seminary teachers. We're trying to give you some tools so that you can search the scriptures and get the answers that you need.
Well said. Well, on that, we got to wrap it up. Stay immersed in the scripture.